Hello everyone, and as you can see today we're going to be learning how to do hyperlapses and some time lapses as well. So we're going to kickstart this off by looking at a camera screen. So your camera may look like this, and as you can see on this camera screen right now there is absolutely nothing on it to help with doing a hyperlapse, and that's what we're going to look at, settings that can help with that. So the first thing we're going to do, or I suggest you do, is dive straight into the menu system on your camera that you have. Now most cameras will have something to do with the monitors and displays, as you can see here. Mine says monitor display. Constant preview on the Panasonic cameras will enable you to see what you're going to take a picture of before taking a picture. We then need to go over to guidelines and turn on our rule of thirds, as can be seen now. And if you like, you can turn on zebra patterns and other things, but for now I'm just going to leave that on there. If you want to match yours up to the image, feel free to do so. So once our rule of thirds are on, you can see it'll look something like this. This is great for hyperlapsing, and I'll discuss why later on. If your camera has a gyro in it, such as the one seen on here, I should suggest you turn that on. This will enable you to see if you're tilting and how to avoid over tilting, because you don't want your images to appear like they're wobbling from left to right. So having it as straight as possible or level as possible will help you out. So the rest of this is really simple. Again, determining, if I can speak, what your kind of day is will help with the settings. So for today I've set my ISO to 200 because it was nice and bright, and then I've set my shutter speed and my aperture to reflect the day. So you can see on the histogram there on the right everything is exposed correctly. I then changed my white balance to a warmish, cloudy white balance, just because it was quite a grey day. From there, you'll see now when I get it into position, this is how your rule of thirds should look. Always make sure the thing that you're wanting to focus on stays attached to part of the grid. That really helps when it comes to doing your hyperlapses, to keep one point in the same place for the whole duration. So when taking the pictures, make sure you take one step at a time. This will really help when you're actually taking the picture, and will ensure that you're not taking too many steps, and that there'll be a nice consistency between your pictures, and this will really help you out. So now we're going to move on to Lightroom. Okay, so we're going to get straight into working with Lightroom and editing your photos, your time lapses, so that we can use them in our video project. So if this is the first time you've opened up Lightroom, the reason we're using Lightroom is it gives us some really handy features that we can apply to all the pictures really rapidly and quickly. So then when you throw this into your video editing software, you don't have to color grade and image manipulate, however many images you've taken. So Lightroom's really good at that. So if this is the first time you've ever used Lightroom, you should get something that looks like this. If not, and you've got pictures already in here, just create a new catalog and rename it, and it'll bring you up with something that looks like this. On the left hand side, just make sure you're in the library viewer, and on the left hand side we're going to hit import, and straight away I've found my flying statue pictures, which are all in here. Now if you click on uncheck all, or if yours look like this, what you want to do is just make sure you've got all of your images selected. So make sure check all is selected, and once you've done that, hit import. So this will really quickly open up all these 55 images, and yep, let's get straight into it. So next we're going to click on develop. Now the beauty of working with raw images, as you can see, this is a raw image. Lightroom allows you to adjust loads of features which you would normally have to do on the day if you're using a JPEG. So for example, if you overexpose, slightly underexposed, etc., you can quite quickly adjust that with a raw picture. However, if it's a JPEG and you start pushing it and pulling it around too much, you can really adversely affect the quality. So I'm not going to do much of a grade today, purely because I want this tutorial to be really quick, but I do recommend you play around with your with Lightroom and really get an image that you're happy with. What I will do though is I'm just going to quickly adjust the curve on this image. So something I like to do to all images, which is just create a bit of an S curve, like so. Not too happy with that there. Let's bring you up a bit. So what we should be doing with this then is adjusting our brightness and contrast, just to give it some popping, just to make the colours pop a little bit and the contrast and brightness pop a little bit. So I'm quite happy with that. I could also suggest maybe boosting the highlight vibrance and reducing the saturation slightly. Okay. So, once you've done something like this, what you do need to do next is hit Control and A, but with the first one selected here. So what I did then is I clicked this image in the bottom left corner, I pressed Control A, which then selected all of the images, but this image, as you can see, is still highlighted a little bit more, slightly. And what I'm going to do then is hit Sync. It's then going to ask me a bunch of questions, just hit Synchronize. So what I've just done there is I'm syncing all the other pictures now to match this color grade, if you like, on here. So this is what I was saying earlier on about Lightroom being super duper fast, especially when it comes to time-lapsing and hyperlapsing. So it's quickly done that now, so I'm ready to save these out. What I'm going to do now is go to File and Export, and I'm just going to export it somewhere that I know where it's going to be. So desktop for me is fine. Put it in a subfolder. I'm going to call this graded flying, and I'm going to keep them the same file names because the camera put them in order. That'll make life easier later on. Make sure it's setting to a JPEG, 100% quality, and I think that is about fine. Oh, don't hit cancel. I'll just do that again. So export. Oh yeah, it's remembered that. Brilliant. Okay, and then hit export. So now you can sit back and relax. As you can see here, the desktop is just going to be exporting 55 of these files, and if I go back to my desktop, it should have created, as you can see here, an image, and we're all good. Okay, so we're now in Premiere Pro. I'm using CS6, however this is the exact same process for the newer CC Premiere Pros. I've just quickly done a couple of test samples, so just ignore these for now. So what you want to do when you're in Premiere Pro, you want to go to Import, and say for example I've got mine here on the desktop. I did come across one issue which I'm going to talk to you about in a little bit, but you'll remember earlier we saved a folder on our desktop and it's there. So once you've found that folder, you just double click it and then just select one of the images, and you'll get an option in the bottom left corner saying image sequence. You just want to tick that. So you're just selecting one image, not all of them, and hitting image sequence. What you do then is click on open, and what Premiere Pro does is it interprets everything within that folder as one single image sequence, or video if you like, which should create and give you something that looks like this. So it's put all of my images into one sequence. Initially what I did there is I dragged this over onto the new sequence icon, which then created this sequence here. So when you click on this and go to properties, you'll notice it gives you all of the frame rates here. So this is playing in 5184 by 2920, so this is like a 5K video. Obviously we don't want it to be that large, so what you could do at this stage is create a new sequence, and I'm just going to select a 25p timeline and hit OK. And we can do something called nesting, which is where we drag a sequence within another sequence and keep existing settings. And what you'll notice here is now this looks incredibly zoomed in. So what I'm going to do is just go to the effect controls, motion, and I'm going to scale it down to, let's say, 50%. And actually it can go a little bit lower to 40%. What we'll then have to do is hit render just to render this nest within our sequence. And this is now a 5K sequence that's now downscaled into 1080p. And you can do the same if you want to do this for 4K. So the pictures give us plenty of room. What we could do now, as you noticed, it is still a little bit shaky and wobbly. Ultimately, the tail stays in the same place and doesn't really alter, which is good. Now, on the newer 2018, 2019 Premiere Pro CCs, you can add this effect onto a nest. I'm not sure if you can with CS6, so let's find out if you can. I'm going to open up Warp Stabilizer, and yeah, it's not going to let me. So what I'm going to do is actually warp stabilize the original sequence, which is going to be quite heavy on the processing power of this computer, with it being a 5K clip, but let's see how it goes. So to try to even out your wobbles and your shake, if you like, what we're going to do is we're going to attempt to add a position, scale and rotation. We're going to leave this at 50%, and we're just going to leave this now to essentially stabilize, if you like, this footage. Okay, so we've returned to our timeline, and now I've rendered and added the effect, the warp stabilizer effect, and this is what we are getting. So as you can see, it's much smoother. It's a little bit jumpy at times, but I'm quite happy with that. It goes a little bit odd on these last few frames, where it seems to tilt, shift into the final moment, but yeah, I'm quite happy with that. We could fine tune this a little bit more, and that would potentially work. But this is essentially it. So we've got our timeline, we've got our hyperlapse, sorry, in our timeline, and that's essentially how you create a hyperlapse using Premiere Pro. And that's it. Thank you.